What about making your sound better?
Okay, so for this next sound I want to use operator, but before you jump into it, let me tell you that when you make a neuro sound, you want to automate and you want to move a lot of things. Like in the previous video we used an LFO on the sampler itself to move, you know, the bandpass filter, plus we have a notch filter which moved back and forth. We applied a flanger which moved back and forth. So if you really want to make a living and breathing neuro bass, you want to automate a lot of things. So this is very essential, and there are two ways to do that. The first thing is to automate things manually. So for example, if I drop operator and you know, click on the filter, I can create a new automation channel, and you know, I can just draw in several stuff. Or if I have a MIDI controller, what I can do is go to MIDI, click on the filter, what I want to, you know, automate, move my knob on my MIDI keyboard, and from this point I can just start tweaking. And as you can see, I just recorded my automation. So this is one way to do that, and not the easiest way, because what I like to do is use Max for Live LFO. I know what you think. This is a very poor way, because, you know, I will make a sound very robotic, where you will be able to hear that it is basically an LFO which moves the sound. But to be honest, I don't care now, because I just want to teach you how to make very cool sounds. And from this point, once you understand the method, you can replace the LFO to manual automation, like on a filter or anything, or you want to use basically anything to form your sound. Anyway, I want to use an LFO on the filter. So what I want to do is map to the frequency, to the cutoff of the filter. Now the movement range is too much, so let's pull back the depth to about 10%. And now you can see that it is not jumping up and down too much, but the depth can be pulled back a little, because what I want to do here is move the filter at around, you know, between 100 Hz and 600 Hz or 1000 Hz maximum. And also the rate is too much, so let's pull it back to about 2 Hz. And I think this is nice now. So let's add a saw wave to the first oscillator, and what I want to use is this algorithm, because I want to have two oscillators. The first one should be a saw wave, second one would be a modulated square wave, and what I want to do here is use another saw wave to frequency modulate this square wave, but I forgot to push it up. So right now this is the sound what we're having. Okay, let's detune this second oscillator with the square wave. Very cool. And one more thing to add here is going to the filter, and let's choose the 4-bit distortion, and let's push up the amount to 12. So we just generated some pretty decent noise to the sound, but it is okay because we're going to apply a lot more filtering. And let's apply a chorus. And now, as I told you before, a regular neuro bass builds up using a sound source, which doesn't really matter what it is. We filter it, then distort it, and we filter it again and compress it, etc. So we just made some filtering on the sound. Right now, let's make some distortion. So what I want to do here is push up the drive. But if I do that, the whole sound will turn into a big mess, and I don't want that. So this is why I want to duplicate this LFO, but I want to map the LFO to the drive. Although the offset is not really good, because I want to go to a positive value with the distortion, not on negative values. So setting the offset to about 0.43, 43 can be good, but let's pull the depth back to about, I don't know, 5. So right now this is a sound. Now I want to use a utility to get rid of the stereo informations, especially on the very lows. So I like to set the frequency to 150, so everything below 150 Hz will be mono, and I want to decrease the stereo informations like, I don't know, 30%. Okay, the next one is an awesome plugin, and I think it is very heavily overlooked because a dynamic tube, especially with the broken tube preset, can create a very, very nice growly kind of tone to the sound. Very, very cool distortion type. And after this, let's add an OTT, like as I told you before, compressing our sound. So let's push up the output, because this OTT plugin always pulls back the energy or pulls back the volume on the sound. And also let's add back some more bass. And I think the other settings are fine. Now this sound is very, very crazy, so let's add an EQ and remove all the unnecessary frequencies, especially the very highs. And at around 700 Hz, and everything in the middle bass area. So this should be sound fine now. Or maybe if not, we can apply an auto filter, and we can move the filter cutoff along with other movements. So what I want to do is duplicate the LFO again. Let's remove the mapping and let's add the movement to the filter cutoff. But like before, let's make several adjustments. So let's pull back the offset to about 0.8 or 0.9, but the depth should be pushed up a little more, because you know we want to apply more movement to the cutoff, and right now this is the sound. Now the sound is a little too noisy, so let's play around with this distortion. Let's tweak the resonance a little more. And maybe a phaser can make a great result. So let's put the phaser after the distortion. So it's a very, very nice growly Neuro Bass. And again, what we can do is drop a sampler and let's resample the sound what we just made. Let's drop it into the sampler. Let's see what note we use, F0. That is very cool. So set the root key to F0. And let's play around after normalizing the volumes of the sound and setting the starting points, the ending point, and some looping with crossfade, deactivating the filter. So right now we can play around with our stuff. Oops, but I forgot to set the voices to 1. And the glide time. So as you can hear, this is a very commonly used Neuro Bass, what you can hear in most of Neuro songs. But if you want, we can still tweak this further, like adding another OTT, and what we did before, like using a notch filter, applying some modulation on it, like pushing up the frequency too, and adding some distortion shaping after the filtering. Also, it is a little too harsh on the middle highs. Anyway, I think this is a very, very nice sound. I hope you learned something from it. And in the next video, we are going to make a synth sound, a pluck or a step sound, which is very suitable for Neuro songs.